Hi guys. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to interview. I'm big fans of both of your work. And the movie's great. So I'm happy about
Thank
that.
you.
And
Thank
yeah,
you.
just excited to pick your brains on what it was like doing it and I don't know, some other things. My name is Cole. I'm a film student at the University of Florida, and I am a writer for FandomWire. So that's the outlet
Cool.
we're doing this for.
Awesome.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, I guess I'll just get started. Ashley, so your character in this movie navigates like this psychological trauma as well as this supernatural terror. And so you deliver such an interesting reaction of fear. And I was wondering, how did you create that? Like, what were you drawing upon to make it seem so real on screen?
Who knows? No, I try and make it as real as possible. I think the innate idea of wanting to survive and to protect your child is something to like very easily tap into. And I think there's, especially when it goes into the protection of someone else, there is a bit of a, I don't know if selflessness is the wrong word, but a strength that comes along with that versus just being terrified for your own well-being.
Mm.
So I think there was a lot of that in there. Mind you, it was kind of a fine line. I had to walk because I had just had my daughter 6 months prior, and so I was kind of like, oh yeah, in no way in hell will I use her or will she be a part of this experience because it just felt too raw and I was like all hormoned up and like there was a lot going on. And so I kind of used other things to be able to create that world. But it's I don't know, like I can't say exactly precisely what it was because I think as an actor you do a lot of work and you create these worlds for yourself, and then when you get on set you kind of go, okay, let's just like see what happens and see what the director says and see what my co-star does and like what does that invoke in me. And so it's kind of it's the fun part about what we do is like there is a moment of going like, well, screw it, guess we'll see what happens.
That's a really good perspective, and it kind of gets into the question that I was looking to ask Shawn. You're unsettling in this. You are a very, you are a sort of scary presence, I would say. And so, how getting into that role, what is it like when the director calls cut and you sort of have to get out of it?
um Well, it was interesting for this character Randall, and we were talking about this earlier. When we meet Randall, he's at like at a 10. So there's not even for an audience to sort of experience who this guy is and learn how he got there. We didn't really have that, and so I did find it challenging to jump into this character like full bore. And but as far as like leaving it on set when you go home after after your work's done, I actually found it particularly easy in this case because we shot in Hamilton, Ontario, which is where my brother lives. So I actually stayed with my brother while we made the movie. So as opposed to going to like a hotel room or an Airbnb where I don't know anybody and I'm just kind of going home and all I have to think about is the next day's work and the performance and what did I do today, and I got to go home and hang out with my brother and my nieces. And so that is like that automatic kind of tension release. And that's why I enjoy, see, there's good and bad about working on location. The good is you really can focus on the work. There's no distractions. You don't have friends in town. Your family isn't usually there. Or in my case, I have a son, but he's in school most of the time, so he can't travel all the time. So I get to really focus on the work. But also, I feel like you can focus too much on it, and you're just kind of living in it, and it's in your head. And I find like I work best when I can just come home, be with my family or be with my friends and relax, and then come back to work the next day, not having overthought it or overworking it in my head or just staying too much in that zone. I do well when I can step away and then get back up to speed and jump back into work the next day.
You mentioned your brother. You have an identical brother, right?
I do it. Yeah. Twin brother. Yeah.
I have an identical twin brother
No
too.
kidding.
So I
All right
thought that was
on.
such a cool thing. But I study film and he studies data science. You two are both
Okay.
actors, which is so interesting. I
Yeah.
I kind of I didn't have this question planned, but just like sort of getting into that personal thing. What is it like having an identical twin brother who's also an actor? Like, how do you guys support your work? And I don't know, what's it like?
Well, I think we've always been supportive of each other's work, and we started when we were kids. We started when we were like 9 or 10, so we grew up doing it, and it wasn't the kind of thing where we were like, oh, we're going to be professional actors. It was just a passion and a hobby we had, and then we both happened to still be working actors making a living doing this. So yeah, we're very supportive of each other's work. I think the best thing that we ever did was he sort of like made his home base in Toronto and my home base is in LA. And so we're not competing as much for roles. Anything that comes through Toronto, he tends to book. And my home base is here in Los Angeles. So that has kind of been the way that I think we've both been able to be successful. We're not stepping on each other's toes. Some people that don't know that we're twins think we're like one of the busiest actors around because like, oh my God, you got 3 TV shows on. It's like, well, no, those ones are his, this one's mine. But yeah, I think Aaron's a fantastic actor, and it's easy to support his work. He makes great choices, and he's my brother, so I love what he does.
No, I totally get that. That's great. Ashley, I sort of obviously your character, Alice in Twilight, going back a long time, I know. You guys in this movie, you also share like this clairvoyance, and
Yeah.
outside of that, like obvious like thing that connects these two characters, what's a trait that you think those two characters share?
Oh, I think certainly their compassion and their care for others. I think, in this film, you see that Cynthia has this life experience and this past trauma that sometimes makes her a bit hesitant to go full on and just, I guess, showcase her ability to look into people's minds. But it's certainly not because she doesn't want to help people. And I think by the end of this, you see that she kind of has to face her fears in order to be able to prevail and take down this entity that's harming people. So I think those are like very easy connections for the two of them.
What I was sort of wondering, because in the same sort of way, Shawn, your most famous character, I would say the Bobby Drake in X-Men, you guys are very different. Ashley plays two characters who are sort of similar, but you play a protagonist there and an antagonist here. What is the biggest challenge of just playing an antagonistic character versus being a hero?
Well, I think that the important thing when you're playing an antagonist is probably not to think of that character as an antagonist because if this movie was from Randall's perspective, he would be the hero of his movie, right? He's trying to save his daughter. Yes, he's doing horrible things to do that, but can you blame him, right? Like he's being put in this impossible situation and then just trying to make the best of it. And the best of it is not allowing his daughter to be fed on by this entity. So I think for an antagonist to really land and feel like a fully formed character, I don't think you can think of that person as a bad guy, just a person that's making decisions that maybe you don't agree with. And again, if this movie was from Randall's perspective, we probably wouldn't, he'd be an anti-hero maybe. He certainly is doing bad things, but I don't know that he would be the villain of his story. And I feel like someone said that in an interview years ago, an actor, and that really stuck with me that, a villain is not a villain in their story. And as when you're, looking at a character, approaching a character, I think it's hard to not see the evil things that they're doing or the bad choices they're making, but I think it's important not to judge those choices.
That is, I didn't think about that. That's a fascinating perspective. And that I guess kind of leads into what my final question was, which is for both of you guys, working on a horror movie, I feel like there's such a difference between being on set and like the actual finished product because of all the editing that goes into it. And so you talk about those like perspectives and how they're like differing ways of like seeing people. And I just have to wonder from you guys, what is it like to see the difference between that on-set version and like the actual version that the audience sees?
Oh man, it's good. It's really good because it's I immediately texted Chad after I saw this and was like, oh my God, you're so talented. This is so great. And it's so cool to see it come together this way because with this film, it's an independent film. There was not a lot of money. There was not a lot of time. And you don't have the budget to have any kind of leeway. And so it's like every move was like a very strategic in his head. And we kind of had to roll with punches sometimes. And in our minds, I'm going, I know that like Shawn and I worked together before. And like, I know he's talented. I know that we work really well together. And I can see this picture in my head, but like it's so different on set. And you don't have like, you know, we get to see the person become the entity. We have to angle this way so we can get this shot. We have to look just right of our co-star so that the eye line's right. And so it's such a different space. And then you see the finished product, and with the sound was incredible. The pacing was great. Like it all just looked awesome. So it's really, it just is like this constant, beautiful reminder of how many people it takes to make a good film, and how like we are just this one piece of the puzzle. And when it comes together right, it's just it feels good because you work really hard on it.
Yeah, and I think the reality for, especially for like aspiring filmmakers and actors, is to realize, and critics sometimes, that what all of us that are making films and television, like you never go into the process being like, well, this is going to be a bad movie. I always enter it being like, I want to make this a great movie. I want my performance to count in this. Sometimes it does, and sometimes it doesn't. And most of it has nothing to do with anybody's talent or experience. Like Ashley said, sometimes you just don't have enough time to achieve the level on every aspect that you want. Like we couldn't get the lighting exactly the way we wanted. We couldn't get the performances the way we wanted. We just didn't have enough time. We needed a couple more takes to really feel it out and get there. And so that's always a challenge, especially when you're making smaller films. And it is such a treat when you sit back and watch the final product, and the movie that you're watching represents the script that you read and that core feeling when you like read the script for the first time, and then it translates and you watch a movie. It's like, oh, that's the magic, is like going from script to the theater and it feeling the same way when you read the script for the first time. And that's how I felt when I watched it feeds. I was like, oh, this is a great representation of the script that I read and I loved.